But on this episode, I'm joined by one of the form players in the world of rugby right now, but he recently broke the hearts of 50 million Scottish people, mine included, worldwide, when it was announced that he was out of the Six Nations tournament after rupturing his pectoral muscle, which required surgery. It's the great, the wonderful, the Scotland captain, Sione Tuipulotu. Sione, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me. I'm doing a bit better now, but yeah, just been resting up at home, to be honest. It's been a bit of a weird last week. I got surgery last Wednesday, so it's already been a week. So hopefully, these weeks move a bit quicker because yeah, it's hard being hurt at the moment.
What happened?
I can't believe I'm supposed it's out there at the moment already, but it was just a training injury. And literally at 40%, my arm was just out like that, and it just kind of got ran into, but not a big impact, not. And that's the most frustrating thing is that, I was speaking to my dad, and I was going on to my fourth season of playing, 30 games a year for club and country, and then I play all those games, and I get injured in training. It's mind-boggling to me, bro, to be honest. But nah, it's happened now, so just got to live with it.
Were you tight going in? Like, was there anything? Was there any? Like, I'm asking that like
Yeah,
genuinely because like with an
no,
Achilles or a calf, and then it just completely goes, and you could see it and feel it coming.
yeah,
What was it like?
yeah.
Did you have
To be
anything?
honest, not a single thing.
Fuck.
And the hardest part is I've been going through my mind. Like I'm starting to. I was like, did I reach for the kettle that morning? Weird, like stuff like that playing on my mind. Like especially before the scan because there was a bit of the delay before I got the scan, and uh, I was literally sitting there going, wait, did I have I benched more than the normal? Nothing. So I don't know if it was hanging on by a thread, and all this is, I suppose, speculation. That's all I can do is speculate. But nothing that stuck out. Not even I wasn't even sore. I felt really good, and it's just one of those things. And that's the hardest part. You just got to live with something that I didn't. It's just happened.
Yeah, it's sport, and I hate using that phrase because genuinely, I'm gutted for you because I mean, obviously been watching you play, right, and then I had my first live experience. I sound like a right rugger bugger, but I went to watch your game against Edinburgh at Hampden, and I thought I'll just do a bit of a player watch. I normally look at the dark arts and like the
Yeah,
stuff that I know what I'm talking about, but I also wanted to kind of deliver the hype around you. And I remember watching you at Hampden over the Christmas games, and it's one of them. And I've never been in that position where everything's on song, but you were on fire. Did you feel like everything was just connecting, like your timing? I suppose it is like a fight. You've got Muhammad Ali in the back, and you watch them just when they're in their greatest moments. Were you
yeah,
just feeling like everything was coming your way? New contract, Scotland captaincy. You were just on fire. Too good to be
yeah.
true, maybe.
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't at that time. I didn't feel like you say everything was going right, but when I look back on it, it really was, and that's the hardest part is that maybe you take it for granted when it's happening, but I was just in the rhythm of playing rugby and my body felt $1 million, and I genuinely just was in the rhythm of playing week in, week out and playing with my mates and having fun and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just that's what makes my injury really hard is that I felt like I was in such a good place and stuff like that. The funny thing about that Hampden game is that I was really dreading playing that game, not just like for the fact that I was playing my brother, and I know a lot got made up about it but I really struggled as the older brother of having to because when I mentally prepare for a game, I mentally prepare for really bad intentions. That's how I get into the mode of playing rugby. And when I had to do that for the week, as soon as I woke up that Monday morning of the week of the Hampden game, I was all over the place. And I think even Franco noticed it from me because he had to pull me over for a chat midweek and just said, "Hey, you're doing all right," just because I wasn't in the mood to play my brother. Like I didn't want to go out there and ultimately you got to try and hurt your own family. And as the bigger brother, I think that is harder. Maybe when you're younger brother, you're always fighting for that validation or stuff. But as the older brother, and especially since he's moved over here, I kind of always feel like, while he is away and we don't have our parents back home, kind of, a fatherly figure to him. So yeah, it was a real weird week playing, but I think Franco switched my mind just before the game. He came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, got to be go time for you. So I said, as soon as he told me it was go time, I flicked the switch pretty quick, and yeah, we had a really good game out in Hampden.
Wow, that's really interesting, Sione, because actually watching that game, and again, having not gone back over it, but it was
Yeah,
more the way you managed the game. And maybe in your mind, you went in with a different mindset of maybe not that
yeah,
out and out physically to go and fuck your opposite man up. And even if Franco
yeah,
did switch your mind, but it was how you orchestrated the game is probably more so what I meant from 12. The direction that the play was going, your kicks through, your passes into the wide channel, that's what specifically stuck out. And I went away from that thinking, wow, we've got a special player here that is more than just a short runner who's taking it up the guts, who can hold his feet in contact. So, yeah,
yeah.
really
Thank you,
interesting,
mate.
mate, really interesting with that. Just back to your injury, I don't know how much you're willing to share, but I think the
Yeah,
listeners, with looking forward to what's happening in the summer with the Lions tour, like,
yeah,
what was the surgery, if you're happy to share, and like what's the recovery
yeah.
timelines on that?
So basically, yeah, I had a tear in my pec. My tendon wasn't fully ruptured or anything like that, but like, as you say, once I did it, I knew something was wrong. But I was just, with everything coming up in the Six Nations and captaining, I was so in denial about it. And when I got pulled into the physio room, I saw a little divot in my armpit as the ultimate sign. I was still in denial. I walked straight out of training with my boots on. I told the physio I'm going home, and they were like, "Wait, where are you going? Like, we need we need to assess it. Like, we need to get you a scan." I was like, "I'm out of here." So I was in a panic because I'd never been hurt before in my career. I'd never, in terms of my longest injury out was 5 weeks in my whole career. So it was new feeling. And then when I got to the scan, I was, it was like a 2 hour wait to get a scan, and I started doing like push-ups and being like, "I'm good. I'm good." Like trying to trying to convince myself I had a torn pec, and I'm there like literally like doing this, like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm good." You know what I mean? And
And
then
what
I
did it
got
feel like?
it genuinely at that moment. I think because I convinced myself that I was fine. I felt okay. Then when I got in the scan, I was in there for 40 minutes on my back, and I went to go get up off my back, and I couldn't because like all the weight's been down on your chest or whatever. So that's when I knew things were wrong. But I've had the surgery now, and they've attached or whatever. To be honest, I didn't ask much questions about what surgery was. I was really nervous because I'd never been in there before in my career. So, but now we're at it. We've done it, and I'm aiming for 12 weeks. And and I know there's a lot of people been messaging me talking about 5 months and stuff like that, but I always reply to them, I was like, "Don't disrespect my genetics," because I can get back quick, and I'm just gonna try and do. I'm just gonna. I know I can just do all the right things, and you know, this my body will reward me if I do all the right things, and I'll be back in 12 weeks, playing rugby, and yeah, that's the only update I can give.
Yeah, well, don't rush back too quickly. Like, you know better than me, but that mechanism there, where your arms out in that vulnerable stretch position, you've got
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
it right.
definitely.
Yeah, and you're going to be missing the Six Nations, which, again, as a Scotland fan, I kind of mentioned it on the intro. I didn't realise there's actually 50 million Scots around the world. That's where I got that number from. But genuine, I can't think of another time, even as a player, where I've seen news come out about an injury, which happens all the time. You see it in other sports. The French would have had it when Anton Dupont did his cheekbone in the World Cup. What's the reaction been like? I mean, you must have felt the love. You would have felt the love before. Has it
Yeah.
helped knowing, like, just how important you are to the country?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, like, because when you're receiving all this love and support, you realize you also let them down. That's what I feel like, anyways, just because I received all that support from, even like obviously people that you haven't met before, and you can see like the impact that you've had on them when you've been playing and stuff like that. But then I also have the other side of not being able to do it for them, this Six Nations. And for me, anyway, as a player, the hardest bit that's going to be the hardest bit for me to get over is that I'm going to go through these ups and downs throughout these Six Nations of watching and supporting the lads, and there's a bit of me that feels a little bit of guilt, because I can't contribute and like deliver on what I know I can deliver and help the team be successful. And that's not saying I'm fully backing all the boys that get put in now with all the injuries that we've had completely. Some of these guys I train with every day, so I know what they're capable of. But it's more of myself just feeling a little bit guilty that I can't go out there and represent, and and being captain as well. I just felt like it was my responsibility and probably my time to try and help us get over the hump. But yeah, obviously it's not to be, and I've just got to live with that.
Man, I genuinely feel for you. I just want to get a gauge on your feelings towards Scotland. Very similar to myself. I mean, I was a bit closer than you were to Scotland, but I grew up in England.
Yeah.
And I remember, Sione, when I first came in, especially when I played against England, I did have this imposter syndrome. Even though I'd grown up in Scotland, the grannies from Greenock, and, my dad was Scottish or whatever it is, you do feel
definitely.
like an alien. And I don't know, from your perspective, like how you've evolved into the role. Because for anyone to say you come in and you're instantaneously comfortable, I don't think you can be, even when singing the anthem. And just from my experience, but I wanted to ask from your experience, because I feel like you are so deep rooted in Scotland and Glasgow now. But just your feeling on that.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. When I first got over here, it was such a shock to me, and I was struggling to find my feet early. You can ask any of the boys. I think for the first 6 months, I probably said 3 words because I didn't want to upset anyone. Like, I didn't want to. It's hard to explain, but like I was struggling to get my personality out there, so I just reserved myself completely and sat back and just played rugby and stuff like that. But I think in terms of the imposter syndrome, and I relate to that a lot, just because I grew up. Me and my brothers, we grew up mixed kids, and we've found, growing up, there's something we always struggle, and it's probably the reason why we started playing sport and we have the personalities that we do, is that probably contributed most to, the chip on my shoulder that I have, and I feel like I probably carried through my whole life, is that you never, when you grow up mixed or from mixed parents, I was never Tongan enough to be full Tongan, or I was never Scottish enough to be full Scottish, or, my mum's father is Italian. I was never, and to Aussies, all you are is I suppose, an ethnic, So I was always, me and my brothers were always in, that pocket. And I suppose that's probably what's prepared me to come over here and be myself, is that we've been doing that with that for our whole lives, and it's made us who we are, as athletes, as people. And, it's something that it's my identity, is that I'm mixed. I'm from, different cultures, and I've been brought up under maybe a few, and that's hard for people to understand in sport because they're so passionate about one thing, or one country, which is fully understandable. But for me anyways, it's very simple to me. It's just that and it's, sometimes you see comments and, angry people about the fact that you're representing Scotland, or now even captaining Scotland. It's just that I don't have to explain myself to anyone. This stuff, my heritage is in me, and I always try and say, I can tell you anything about if I'm proud to play for Scotland, or if I'm also a proud Tongan. But the easy way to do it, especially in a contact sport, is to show and that's how I've always felt about it.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, you're a warrior. Like you lads that are playing now, you look at the injuries that we've picked up, you're giving your body to the game. And whoever's coming back at you with them comments, that's life, isn't it? But I think what it is, I think because of Scotland and Ireland, them two specifically, a lot of it's based on accent.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't sound Scottish. That's the first thing, right? You don't sound Irish, you don't sound Scottish. And that's how people see it. And there's a load of jokes. It's like, well, what makes you a Scotsman? Like, what is it? Oh, you've got to be born there. And we always joke about it, Sione, that John Barkley was born in Hong Kong and he's not Chinese. And Kelly Brown, who's my best mate, he hasn't got any Scottish blood. Like, I'm half Scottish. He has zero Scottish blood. His mum's Irish and his dad's English, which is crazy because he obviously captained the country as well. But, when times like this happen, Sione, I know you've not been in a position like this, and it's probably a hard thing to answer because the Six Nations is going to happen in front of you without you playing. But have you had time to reflect about actually how much it means to play for Scotland? I'd love you to share some thoughts to the listener, because I get very emotional when I try and explain it to my kids, or when I'm at Murrayfield and I'm there during the anthems and I don't have a huge amount of memorabilia because I struggle with, like, I'm getting goosebumps now actually talking about what it means to play for Scotland.
Yeah,
It's a very unique country to play
yeah,
for. Can you just give the listeners an idea of what it was like for you, or what it is like
yeah.
for you?
I think, now it's been taken away from me. That's when I suppose you look at it from that perspective of wow, I'm so disappointed because I don't get that feeling of waking up with my guts all over the place because I'm so nervous for this game because but that's the feeling that you chase, like that's the feeling that, when we often joke around about it, but when mindset coaches come in and they're like, pressure is a privilege, and some of the half the boys are like, oh, for fuck's sakes, you know what I mean? Like, but that's what they're trying to explain in the simplest form is that is the feeling that all athletes get to feel that normal people or people with regular jobs don't. And when you get to play rugby specifically for Scotland at Murrayfield, that feeling of pride, but it's mixed with the nervousness and the butterflies in my stomach, and that is a feeling that is almost, for me anyways, an addiction. And like now my addiction, like my drug or whatever, has been taken away from me. You realize how much that feeling means to you, and especially when we win, obviously. But and I think just the nature of playing for Scotland is that obviously we're chasing that glory that we haven't had, but that pursuit of at that glory and maybe the underdog story of Scottish rugby or maybe even Scottish sports, I think suits me and makes me feel. And we had that a lot in the Glasgow run last year towards the final. Is that I felt like no one really thought we could win, and the way Franco themed everything around, it being the Scottish story, it really resonated with me, and I attached myself to it to a point where I felt like people couldn't have got us off track, And I think that's what it really resonates with me about playing for Scotland is that we are a little bit of an underdog story, and we're searching for that obviously glory that we've been searching for so long, and it makes for me, anyways, because I think when maybe you're one of the first team to try and do it, makes it so much more special. So yeah, that's what it is for me, anyways, is chasing that feeling that you feel game day morning and representing so many people.
What is the moment on game day? So is it the build up? And for me, it was the run out, and it did feel gladiatorial at times where you run
Yeah,
out into the
yeah, and
stadium.
Murrayfield anyway,
At Murray,
and
there was something, eh? There's
yeah,
something there. I don't know what it is.
it's a weird, it's almost, it's a little bit eerie to be honest, talking about it and not doing it, but uh, for me, I always joke around to Hamish Watson about this, but as athletes, you wake up in the morning and it's almost like there's so much work to be done today, like you have that feeling where it's like you're excited and everything like that, but deep down I always get nervous because I know what it's going to take, if you know what I mean. Like I know how much work is going to be required to get what you need to, or what your objective is. So for me, literally as soon as I open my eyes, I'm just like, okay, well, it's game day, so it's going to be one of those days where we're have to going to go to the well, so but I love that feeling. It's like a love-hate relationship where it's uncomfortable, but that's the feeling that you're ultimately chasing.
It's the feeling of being alive. If you
Yeah,
if you don't
that's
know if
it.
you don't know what the feeling is, I've worked it out because I feel alive now. Of course, I've got four wonderful children, but even listening to you speak, and I mentioned goosebumps. I'm sat here in a studio by myself and reliving them moments. The only way in which I can say it is I've never felt more alive. When you run
Yeah,
out there and you're willing, and people don't like this statement, you're willing to give your life and soul in that moment, which is gladiatorial, right? And some people
yeah,
might think it sounds sad, but that is
yeah,
the only way in which I can describe it. And the way that you play Sione, and the physical contact and the combativeness that you have, there is a mindset. You kind of mentioned that when you were up against your brother as well. Is that mindset going into a game?
yeah, definitely. And I think that's what in terms of the gladiatorial part of it, I think that's what makes the Six Nations unique because there's actual history between countries. And that's what makes it so awesome because, it's not like we're warriors, but we're not warriors like the warriors that fought in the past. But it can all be linked to the passion of countries, like for example, the Scottish anthem or whatever it is. But that's why I believe there's a different feeling for the Six Nations than any other competition in the world, because there's actually deep rooted history between countries, and it makes it so special because the fans are so passionate, and you got, young fans that are, I don't know, 6 7 years old, but then you've got also the 80-year-old fan who's been coming and who has seen this history, who knows this history between countries, which makes the games and the support for the game so incredible.
It's tribal. It's that tribalism which they have in football or soccer. I'm like bloody half American now these days. But the tribalism that they have in England and Scotland for football, and over in Spain and France and wherever. But then in America they have the tribalism in NFL and NBA. Actually, when you look at our game, the Six Nations is so fucking powerful because of that tribalism. It happens every single year, like in the kind of end of winter, so it's wet and grainy and dark. But that's really cool that you've picked that up and you understand. Not that I didn't expect you to, but from being in Australia and probably watching it from afar. But everyone speaks about the Six Nations being the number one tournament, but you're kind of rubber stamping that and saying 100% it is.
Yeah, definitely.
What about Scotland then as a team moving forward? On you mentioned there that going in as the underdogs, you think you're the underdogs now. You should have seen it when I was playing, because I actually go out there now as a fan expecting you guys to go there and do something. But I think what a lot of the fans are asking, and especially into this tournament now, is how do we take the next step?
To be honest, I think it's pretty obvious to everyone. I think it's consistency. And over a tournament, there is tournament pressure where every game matters towards an end of a table. Where when you're in an Autumn Nations or a summer tour, you don't have that external pressure of every single one of these games contribute to whether or not you're going to be successful or not. And that's the challenge of the Six Nations, and that's Ireland have been the most successful Six Nations teams over the last couple of years because they are the most consistent, and their performance is always right there. And even if a little drop off, we're not talking a drop off from an 8 to a 4. We're talking a drop off to maybe an 8 to a 7. And I think that's the main thing, and I think so much contributes to consistency. Obviously, the biggest one I think is mindset, to consistency, like individual mindset, and then contributing that to a team mindset. And then other than that, I think it's just genuinely intense focus over a long period of time. And I think this squad that's been together now for quite a while now, you look at the back line and the cap numbers in that back line, and even the forward pack now as well, is that we're building, we've built quite a settled team that we're really as players now, we don't have any excuse not to be consistent. And I think that's the main thing, is putting the pressure on yourself to individually deliver consistently. Like, I know it's a team game and everything like that, but ultimately 15 guys individually contribute to a team mindset. And I think, that's the step forward, is that if we can get our whole squad with the individual mindset to focus on consistency and intense focus, then I think that's what maybe will take the next step.
Do you know what the big thing I think is? I think that you've now got a team of winners. You winning the URC for Glasgow, the way in which you did it, I didn't think you were going to win it, because I looked at the squads, if you want to look from the outside looking in, and the quality and the depth that they had. So for you to go and win the URC how you did is a massive step forward. Johnny Gray as well, being at Exeter, having won the Champions Cup and won the Premiership. You've got players in your team now, in our team, in the squad, that actually know what it feels like to win, and also win when you're not playing well. And this is the big thing around the Six Nations, because throughout this tournament, you're going to have to win games where you probably didn't deserve to win. And that is the big shift in mindset and delivering a championship effectively.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree completely. And, before we won for Glasgow, to be honest, I don't know what it's like to win, because I had never done in my professional career. But now we look at our team last year, with Glasgow, to our team this year. I believe we're a very different team, because we know how to win, like you say, when we aren't playing our best. And then obviously when we do click fully, we can blow teams out of the water. But it's very interesting. It's like you say, you kind of, when you're in that, I remember in my first year that I got to Glasgow, you almost forget how to win, and you get so used to losing that it becomes like you get into a tight game and you're dominating the game at 60 minutes and you're up 24, I don't know, 10, and you forget how to win. You know what I mean? You stop doing things, and all of a sudden that starts to become a habit. And it's very obvious when you watch any sport that the teams that have that, but then on the opposite side, you look at the teams that have the culture of winning, like you say, and look at Ireland over the last, South Africa especially, I think is the big one. Is that you can look at a game, our game in maybe the autumn was probably the most obvious one, is that at 60 minutes, we're looking really, really, really good, but I feel like maybe their mindset, and there was a couple of technical things that we didn't get right in that game in the last 20 minutes. They know how to win. And they're so used to winning in those tight games that when their players get into a 16-17 game in the 70th minute, there's not a single player on their field that don't believe they're not going to win that game.
What is it about Ireland then? They're a team that have had our number in recent years. Specifically, some insight into why they are so good, Sione.
I think the things that jump off the television for me anyways when I watch them rather than play them is I think they're all really emotionally invested to their goal and playing for Ireland, and their passion and everything is there. I don't know what you feel like, but when I watch Ireland, I see passion, I see emotion when I watch them play, but then I also see that channeled really, I suppose, technically and precisely to the way they play. And I just think they're really clinical. You look at all their set piece starters, they hardly ever make set piece errors. And I just think when you have a really good scrum, a really good line out, and you don't turn the ball over off your strikes, like in the first couple of phases, I just think you're going to be in any game, no matter what. And, then you mix that with, obviously they've been really well coached over the last long time that they've been successful, but then you mix that with world-class players that know how to deliver time and time and time again on that stage, you're going to have a successful team.
Yeah, I think they've been so good. I say with like Leinster specifically, but that high performance environment like you're in at Glasgow now, I just think that can't be underestimated, and the hustle to get into that position that they're in. But at some point, mate, the hoodoo needs to go. I've got a feeling this championship, and it is about having that kind of confidence to come out and say, and I've heard you say this actually, and I've heard a few players in the team now, instead of saying, oh, we just want to get better week on week, it's like, no, we're fucking going to go out there and we're going to win. And having that confidence, which is an un-Scottish thing to do, right? To come out there and to have that kind of arrogance and the swagger. Is that hard for someone like you coming from Australia, where there is a little bit more swagger, isn't there? Like there is, like you listen to Australians talk and make you Scottish now, but like the old Australian in you. But like, how difficult is it to play that humble card, then to come out and actually say, you know what, fuck it, we're going to win the Six Nations?
You're right, and I think that contributes a lot to, like, I don't know, I've been watching a lot of the NFL. Over the last couple of years, me and Jack Dempsey are really into it, and you look at how their teams, come out in media and talk and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that rugby necessarily needs to be like that, but you can't tell me it's not more entertaining, and people really, really want to see that stuff. And ultimately it's, I think obviously there's a fear of coming out and saying what you believe but then I think when you're really confident and you've put in the work and it's not necessarily you're coming out to be heard, but you're speaking your mind, is that you're confident and you don't have fear that you won't fall short. If you know what I mean, that's the whole part of talking, I think, openly, is that if you're going to talk openly, obviously the main thing is that you back it up, and that's the challenge for Scotland, is that we have to back it up, and I just think for Scotland anyways, it's I feel like there is always media pressures, like for the people who always want to say, oh, they never deliver, or, there's always that type of stuff. But I think the most important thing for the boys is that, to be honest, 50 years from now, no one's going to even remember one single word about the external pressure. Like, not one headline, not, I know news reporters and stuff like that seem to think they're really important in the moment, but no one's going to remember their article in 50 years, So, and I think that's what the successful teams like Ireland and have done, is that they don't take all that external pressure on. They put the pressure on themselves internally within the group. And I think that internal pressure is really important in rugby. And that's when I think you can come out and say in front of your teammates, no, you don't have an excuse to, buck up that line out, or you don't have an excuse to give that scrum penalty away because we pick you to deliver on that. And that's where I think speaking your mind, it can be really powerful is within the group and, putting that internal pressure on your teammates and yourself.
It's really interesting you mentioned the NFL, and some people listening to this will be hating me because I'm all over it at the minute. I was in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago with Jordan Mailata.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I saw that.
Mate, it was amazing. He plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a multi-million-pound. He just signed a $60 million contract over 3 years.
Crazy, eh?
Test week or match week or game week or whatever they call it over there. I get an hour and a half of his time to talk about his experiences as an athlete. And it was interesting, Sione, especially with the news about Netflix, which I'll ask you about in a minute, was his mindset as a player, again, not from America. So he isn't American, albeit he's American till he dies now because he's staying in Philly, he said. But the mindset of the brand and the performance. And he actually says something really interesting. He was like, it's 50-50. So growing that individual brand and the value around that, but then the pressure that actually puts on you to put on the performance, right? So you're almost saying it out loud, which is very different to how we do it in rugby because it's all about humble and it's about team. What is your view on that? The fact that I've got you now, but I know that you've done a little bit of media, and then I want to ask your views on your experience with Netflix as well. So if the Americans are doing it right, they're putting themselves out there. Jordan Mailata's doing the interview the day they've got, the week they've got a game.
Yep.
And the access you get for that. What do you feel about that as an athlete, putting yourself out there, but also your experience with Netflix where they've now pulled the plug on it because the access weren't there?
Yeah, and I think we've been saying it for the last 5 years, like we need more personalities in rugby. We need more personalities in rugby, but like how? How do we do it? And the funny thing is like, I feel like anytime I've seen a rugby player put their personality out there, it gets shot down real quick.
Where
and all
from?
of a sudden, from media outlets or whatever, or I'm not too sure about where, but I think online specifically is that and not only that, I think there's also pressure from like teammates and stuff like that. You know what it's like being in a rugby environment. It's like, oh, why'd you go out and say that? Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're getting pressure. It's almost like I think I've always thought this is that I think there's a fake bit of humility in rugby, and there always has been. And I think that, to me, that fake, like that, I think that bit of humility is almost like a silent arrogance, I think. And it's very obvious when you're around rugby circles that how obvious that's, that silent arrogance is, where we watch American sports and we go, oh, like, look at these guys hamming it up and, all that stuff. Really, you ask any of the athletes that play rugby, they want to do that stuff. You know what I mean? They want to do it. It's just that they don't feel comfortable doing it, and it's because of a long history of rugby of being a gentleman's sport. But I think that's why we're stuck in this little pocket, and it's, I suppose this is all obvious information. And but I do think it's such a shame because there is so many personalities in rugby that are so interesting, and no one will ever get to see them because all we know is the same storyline of the same rugby player coming from the same pocket of schools, coming with the same story and the same academies and, going through and stuff like that. We never actually get to hear a story that people find interesting.
And that brings me on to your celebration. Is that a bow and arrow celebration that you shoot into the crowd? I actually didn't pick that up, but someone on the fans question mentioned, like, asking what the celebration was.
To be honest, that celebration started, I want to say it started like a year and a half ago. I don't score many tries anyways. Like I reckon I score 4 or 5 a year. So it's the first down celebration from the NFL. When all their players get the first down, they point north. So that's what I don't know. The first time actually happened organically. When the first time I ever did it was against the Stormers maybe a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, and it happened. I just did it because I was so hyped in that moment, and it just popped out of me. And then ever since then, I was just like, I'm just going to do it every time I get over the line. So now it's just become my thing, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of my mates even, and that's the thing, is that's how rugby has become. Is that probably heaps of my mates that hate it. But it's I don't know. I just don't really care.
Matt, I think if you're an athlete as good as you are, you can genuinely do what you like. I saw Thomas Williams, the scrum half for Wales at Gloucester, and he scored a worldie of a try. And I don't know if he was going to do it. We had him on the rugby pod. I should have asked him, or it might have been after that. But I thought he was going to do the old Alan Shearer celebration past the shed, and I think he was teetering on doing it. He was winding up to do it, and I was begging him to do it. And
he pump faked.
Yeah, but go with your feeling. Like, that's what I mean. And you talk about characters. The characters bit's the really interesting thing, because a lot of people think that you need to be an amazing speaker or you need to be able to deliver with charisma. That isn't what it is. Like that, because everyone's different, right? We are.
Yeah.
So I put me in the realm of a rugby player, but an athlete or an ex-athlete. You guys, anyone who's played the sport, we're not normal. We're not normal people. We are outliers. We're 1%ers, whatever you want to call it. So we can't look at this as if, like, no, we need to be normal. We are normal people. For you to put your body, what you're putting your body through, is not a normal existence on the planet. And I think people need to realise that when they're put in front of camera, or they need to give the best version of themselves. There's many things with this, Sione. One is like written press, right? So you can do a written press and you can just straight back because it's going to be transcribed however, and there's no tone or whatever. But other parts of it could be, how you look on camera. Like, a lot of you lads look cool as fuck. What you're wearing, and we're still wearing our same old gear to every game, and it's like team first, we're going to do this.
Exactly, yeah.
But I wanted to ask about what the Netflix experience was like being in that environment. Was it an access thing? Was it a nervousness to give yourself give yourself out there? What was it?
Yeah, to be completely honest, I think I don't know if it was from our behalf or from Netflix's behalf, but there wasn't much access to, like, I watched the first season. Ultimately, people want to watch these shows to be entertained, and there's not much access to what's entertaining for the common fan. Like, people, I feel like people want to see Finn Russell in the team room doing, you know what I mean? Like, they want to see what he's doing, while he's chilling, or even when he's on a night out and stuff like that. And I'm not saying we start getting court cases popping up everywhere, but
I'd be good.
I'm just, but I'm just saying, I think the limit that we put on, what they could film and stuff like that, and ultimately, this is the other thing that comes back to the whole, you don't want to stick your neck out just in case that you don't deliver, is that with the access and stuff like that, is that you don't want to be the first team that go and give all the access and start hamming everything up, and then you go and finish 5th in the championship or 6th in the Six Nations. You know what I mean? And then you start that, and then ultimately people are scared to have that look. And I think it ultimately, I think it's, I don't know why they've cut it, but I'm assuming it's because of the viewing. You know what I mean? Like the view numbers were down and everything like that. And I'm assuming also just because the stuff that it's all for a diehard rugby fan, that stuff's interesting, like the guys that have played the game and stuff like that, you can watch that and it's nice to see the players, training and preparing for a game and how they do it. But for the casual, they want to see drama. They want to see what these guys are really like, and maybe that's what we missed with it, I think, anyways.
Yeah, it's just about taking the leap, isn't it? I mean, there was loads of rumours dotting around. I think we knew about the Welsh one because of everything was going on off field, the drama that they wouldn't allow access, and that Ireland wouldn't give them any access at all because Johnny Sexton was in the team and Peter O'Mahony, who doesn't believe in this kind of thing. For me, Sione, it isn't for you or for Gregor or for me or for the SRU even to make the decision. It's wider than that. I think it's almost like, no, Andy Farrell, Steve Borthwick, you ain't making a decision on this. This is happening. They're in. So
if they're coming in, they're coming in.
If they're coming in, they're in. And then that's it. Steve, you ain't going to be here in 3 years. Faz, you ain't going to be here, mate, in 3 or 4 years. This is future-proofing the game to engage a brand new audience. And we were talking about on the rugby pod, like there's a NASCAR one. Mate, I like cars. I've never seen NASCAR. I'm loving it. So I'm now all in on NASCAR. That's it. That's the formula. Me,
Yeah.
a
And
casual.
the Formula One stuff as well. Like I remember when all that stuff came out, and my missus doesn't know anything about cars as well. And I came home one day and she started yarning about it. I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Oh, I've been watching the F1 stuff on Netflix." I was like, "What F1 stuff?" She started spitting all this stuff and all these drives and stuff like that. But it shows you like even like a female who's never even watched F1 ever, not interested in cars, and she's all of a sudden interested in it. So yeah, it is a shame and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I agree with what you're saying. And it's interesting about the players, that didn't want them to come in. And this is the hard part of, I suppose, growing the game, is that these guys are ultimately the ones that you've said. I never knew about the Johnny Sexton and Peter Romani stuff and stuff like that. But the hard thing as well is that these guys are the ones that have achieved everything, and that's the hard part of that, sticking your neck out, is these are the guys at the top of our game. I don't know, for me anyways, I don't feel like I can speak up and say I don't think it should be like that, but we're here having this conversation because it's about, we think, growing the game and how we can, you know better it for fans and stuff like that. And it would be like, I even think it would be a shame if I got to 7 years old and I'm watching my grandkids play rugby and we're in the same spot. Like I would be really upset that we didn't, better or further the game. And we're still in these things where we're losing TV rights, or teams are folding and stuff like that. I think it's really sad for rugby. So, well, I don't have any solutions, but I think there's something there, and we need to, as players now of today, be the ones that, maybe do stick our neck out and, show our personality a little bit more.
Yeah. So as Scotland captain, would you open the doors?
Are you putting it on me?
I'm putting it on you as a guy who's putting himself out there, because and you don't have to answer it at all if you don't feel
Yeah,
comfortable. But I'd really like to know, as
yeah,
Scotland captain, as a fan of other sports, of what they're doing, because I know there's a jealousy of other sports. I know we're looking at other sports. I'm jealous. I was jealous 8 years ago,
yeah,
thinking we
yeah,
need to do that. But like, as a
yeah,
guy who's captain his country now, who needs to be guarded because you
yeah,
don't want to give too much away.
yeah,
But if you were to swing one way or the other, genuinely, like a kind of honest
yeah,
answer, what would you do?
yeah. Well, to be honest, I've had these thoughts myself, is that I think I am myself on camera, and I always have been. I sometimes get questions wrong because I answer them honestly, and maybe it comes across arrogant to some people, or maybe sometimes it's the other way where I'm too humble. But I found anyways, because I had never done a lot of media before, I had never even had a public Instagram till a couple months ago, is that I find the fake humility thing, or the media train thing, I find that really exhausting. Like I find that part of the game, having to put on that front, having to not show my emotions, having to, get up on, after a game and speak as a captain and say, "Oh, we'll be better next game," or "That didn't hurt to me," or, like I find that so exhausting. And, and I've just kind of made the decision myself that I find people relate to me more when I'm just myself, and maybe they see the way that I talk and as maybe authentic, and I find maybe I've just made the decision for myself that I'm just going to start doing that now, and just because it's easier and it's less exhausting, genuinely.
What about the team? Let them in. Let Netflix in if they came back. If they're listening, open up the
Well, I,
doors.
I was just having this conversation with Lara. My brother was over as well. Is that generally, if only we, and this is the hard thing, is because we as players, we're telling them not to, and that's the thing that we have to own up to, is that I wish they could have just come to the team room and listened to the way we banter for, you know what I mean, a couple of hours. That's what viewers would find hilarious,
But that's what I
and
mean, Sione. They need to take the decision out of
yeah,
your
out of the
hands
players' hands. Yeah,
and be like, this is what's happening. So
yeah,
I was trying to dig out a quote from Rassie Erasmus where he talks about this kind of thing, where it's like rugby is more important than any of this, more important than the people, more important than the fans. Like, the sport is the sport. And
yeah.
I've misquoted it a million times, but I'm going to find it. But we were talking about chasing the sun, and you've seen that, and you're a fan of that, right?
Yeah, I've seen that. My missus is actually South African, just to add another nationality to this
Oh,
mixing pot we've got going on. yes, it's going to be interesting to what my son looks like because he's got every nationality in him,
Well, he's going to be fucking
Uh,
good if he's got that in him as well.
so yeah, I watched it with with Lara here at home. I think we've watched the old one though, not the new one.
Mm.
The one thing, I've obviously never been coached by him. The one thing that jumps off the television when he coaches, he knows how to motivate and get those boys emotionally driven in the exact same direction. And now, I've been coached by Franco as well. It's obviously a South African thing, but I feel like in Test rugby, I feel like I've said this to the boys as well, is that when you play club footy, tactical alignment can win you games. Because you've got talented players, you're all tactically aligned. I feel like the next step when you play Test rugby is tactical alignment won't win you the game because you have to have emotional alignment to something bigger than maybe yourself, or and you have to connect to yourself something that's really gonna. You look at like even Peter Steph's performance in the World Cup final, like that's not a rugby performance, like I didn't think so. Anyways, I remember I was watching with Demo in Glasgow here, where every moment, every time he was in the game, even it was I'd never seen a
He
performance like
played
that.
like a god.
It was so different, genuinely. Like it's the best rugby performance I've ever seen in my life. And then you watch how it links with how Rassie coaches and stuff like that. It makes sense, like they're not just saying going up there and saying we're going to die for South Africa, not saying we're willing this to be the last time we ever lace up boots today, or Rassie saying that. But when you watch, the players are telling you that, and it's it's powerful,
It's hard to compete against that, though, isn't it? And that is why they are so successful. I'm deeply engaged in the South African
yeah,
mindset. I've got a deep-rooted love for them as
yeah,
a country. But how do you compete with that,
yeah.
Sione?
It's we came up against them in the autumn, and to be honest, that was probably one of the first. Like we've always Scott. I feel like our identity under Gregor and under Steve Tandy and JD, I felt like we always had a strong identity in terms of our passion to play for Scotland. But that South Africa game specifically, I think that brought out the next layer of us because we knew what we were playing. We felt what the wrath of them at the World Cup. We took our lesson from that, and I felt like physically we really stood up to them. But you're right, is that the same thing is that it jumps off the screen at you that they're, I suppose, how comfortable they are in the last 20 minutes of games because, like you say, they are all emotionally connected to what needs to happen, and they don't just think of it as like, I suppose we lose this test match, I still get my match fee, like, and that's something they're not thinking about that. Like they're thinking we lose this test match, a lot goes wrong, against anyone. South Africa could play, a tier 2 nation. They still have that mentality, and I think that's something special that Rassie's built over there in South Africa.
I wanted to ask a question around like a dream player that you could play with or a dream centre partnership of past or present. Is there anyone that you look at? You kind of reference Peter Steph the toy there, who I'm the same as you. I think it'd be mega. But is there anyone else out
In
there?
in 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 position wise, or
Anywhere,
like
just
specifically?
anywhere you'd be like,
Oh,
I'd love
okay,
to play with
right.
him.
I think the obvious one is the obvious one is Dupont because of what he could do, and I'd just like to be on the field to watch him do, you know what I mean, do some of this stuff and sit back and be like, goodness me, you know what I mean, like. But in terms of playing directly with, I feel like genuinely I've ticked off a lot. Like playing with Finn was one before I came here. I got to play with Will Genia when I was in Melbourne. And I always say to anyone that ever talks to me is that his top 3 rugby players that I've ever seen with my eyes is that I've never met someone. I call his rugby style like freeze frame rugby. Like he would come out from the ruck, press pause on everything, and then it's like he has 20 minutes to decide which is the best forward option. And he never gets caught with the ball. And then every time he would run, it's a line break. Like I'd never seen and all the specifics around his game were amazing. His box kicking, his passing, He was also a nugget. And then on top of that, he was a competitive dog. Like at training and stuff like that, he would blow up. He blew up at me that many times. But he's definitely one of them. And then I think one that I never got to even be around. My favorite rugby player ever is Ma Nonu, mainly just because of like I feel like his aura when he played rugby, and obviously all the stuff around his skill set and stuff like that, and being a triple threat. But I think as a kid, when I grew up watching him play, it was more just the look of him, like he used to wear those weird ass skins that go down to like his knees, and like the dreadlocks, and then like the eyeliner around the eye. Like he to me looked like a movie character, like that's off a movie, And then he would somehow every game that I watch him play just be the best player on the field. So I would say him just to be around, and see how he acted around the team. He's probably my biggest, I suppose, rugby inspiration.
There you go. Well, we got into it because I've got a section in here. Is whose goats are these? Sione's goats. Is he part of that roster? Is he? Maybe give me your three now.
He's on Mount Rushmore, definitely. So he's there. I would put Will Genia there, definitely. And then I played with Kwaha Smith when I was at Yamaha in Japan. And I've never seen anything like I played with anything like Kwaha, because he I don't know, most people don't know this, but like after if we had a couple of beers after the game on a Saturday, he'd come in Monday morning and be under 100 kegs. He'd be like 96 or 95, and I'd be like, what the? And then he'd go onto the field and just start killing everything. I was always amazed by his conditioning and his ability not to get tired. You know what I mean? He'd just be like zipping around everywhere and not get tired. And the other one for me is, because for very similar reasons, is Marika Koroibete. And I know the last three are ones that I've just been around just because I feel like you have more, you know what I mean? Like you've seen what they do and most people don't get to see the training stuff. Some of the training stuff is crazy, like when I'm watching Willie G do stuff. And then Marika's athletically, I think he's the biggest freak that I've ever been around. He would get, he would come in on Monday morning smelling like all types of things. And then he'd get on, and I think it's because he was at the Melbourne Storm before, and they have such a professional environment that training is so important, and training standards are so important. When he got to the Rebels, he was a better trainer than everyone. He's the best trainer I've ever come across. And then when he goes into the game, I've never seen a guy like you put him in a fitness drill, he'd come dead last. You put a ball out there and put a jersey on him, there's no one that can run more. No one can, and then you mix that with the fact that his body is granite. And it's terrifying, bro. And then on top of that, also, he's like a normal Fijian, the most humble, genuine bloke ever. So that'd be my three that I've played with, and then obviously one being the GOAT of all things.
That's class. Right, we're going to come on to some fans' questions, but before we do the fans' questions, I've got two questions that I want to ask, okay, which are big questions that a lot of people were talking about. So, Joseph Suaalii, that game against Australia, where he's gone to fucking monster you, and then he's ended up going off. I thought he broke his arm. I thought he'd severed a nerve in his shoulder. What did he say to you? What did you say to him?
I can't tell you that, Jim. I'm sorry, brother.
Okay.
No, look, it was... You've been on a rugby field before. I will never go out on a podcast and say what's said on the field. I just don't feel like that's me, and some of that's protecting myself because of what I say on the field, And I own that completely. When I get onto a rugby field, I say what I want to say. We're in a competitive contact sport, competing against each other at the highest level. And me and him got into it. To be honest, I think my one regret was I didn't actually think he was actually hurt. I thought maybe he was just a little bit dazed. And then when I suppose the part that I feel bad for is that I never want to heckle a player that was on the ground injured. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think he was going to be enough for him to go off the field and stuff like that, or get into it with someone that's injured. But me and him got into it, and then he went off the field, and that was that. But there's the footage is out there. He got me good.
Yeah, well, I'm asking the question not because I'm looking for a headline. I'm looking at two unbelievably incredible athletes playing in a similar position who might be playing against each other in the summer for the Lions, and that would be a dream of yours, and I'd maybe piggyback with that. But that's why I asked the question, because it was a massive collision, right? You're both going after each other.
Yeah, I said this on Wilson's podcast. I've never been hit like that in my career, and it was a flash too. And when you get hit so clean like that, those are the ones that actually don't hurt, because your body just goes. You know what I mean? And it's not like you've fought against it, and it's like a direct upright collision where you're like both fighting against each other. They're the ones that hurt. But the ones that he got me so clean that I kind of just bounced off my back, and I was like looking around. I didn't even know who it was. He hit me that fast. So yeah, there was so much niggle in that game, but I found that game so fun because of it, you know. And obviously there was so much in it for me because I know all those boys and I'm mates with so many of those boys. But I feel like that's what I play rugby for, you know. I want to play against my mates. I want to tell them, you know, on the field like what's happening, or if I get one over him, I'm gonna tell him, you know. Like that's what makes it fun to me, you know. That's why I started playing rugby in the first place. So no, I'm not sorry for any of that stuff, and I don't expect those boys to be sorry for anything they said on the field either.
Do you think about the Lions? Are you thinking about it? And it must be a really difficult thing because of the Australia element to it. Going back home, Scotland captain, you were on fire.
You know, when I started getting a lot of the messages about, you know, when I got hurt and stuff like that, I think people were gutted for me. Most of my sadness was because I feel like if this is the time now for Scotland, I really want to be a part of it and I want to be a contributor. You know, that's where my pain lies. And I know ultimately if I went into that tournament and kept playing like I did, I would be in for a shot to go on this tour and, you know, achieve my dreams and everything like that. But now it's, the part that sucks for me most is that I can't influence the situation without my boots on. And, you know, I've just got to be at peace with the fact that, you know, every time I put my boots on over the last, you know, 9 months, I felt like I influenced, you know, the situation. And, you know, I can hang my hat on that of, you know, I've come out and said, that is my dream. You know, I feel like that anyone playing in Britain and should feel like that, you know. They should feel like that they want to go on that tour. And yeah, I suppose now I'm in a weird pocket where I have to sit and watch, you know, and you don't have the power to influence the situation. But all I can do now is, you know, I've kind of made up in my mind since I got the surgery, you know, that what's happened is what happened, and if I'm going to miss the bus, I'm going to miss it running, you know, and I'm going to try and get back as fast as I can, but, you know, as properly as I can, and play in the late stages, you know, for Glasgow, last couple of months of rugby for Glasgow, and you know, influence it there with my boots on, because there's nothing I can do speaking, you know, about it, and ultimately it's out of my playing rugby now is out of my hands. It's something I can't do, but yeah, like I said, you know, I'm going to do everything that I can to get back to what I know I can do. And I feel like as soon as I get my body right, you know, in that 12 weeks that I'm aiming for, I get back on that field, I put my boots on, I'll be so emotionally held back that I feel like I can go out and deliver what I've been delivering on over the last 9 months. So yeah, that's my say on it anyway.
Right, well, we're going to finish off with the fan segment. You've got no fans.
You've got no fans?
This is a show for the fans, and I put out a tweet, or an X, I don't know what you call it now, an Instagram post. I had 65, 70 plus coming in, so I genuinely, more than I've ever had. I joke that we get millions come in, but we had loads, so there's obviously a real interest. So I've just trimmed them down. You can just give kind of short answers, but I want to give the fans a shout out because there was a few that were repeating, and we've gone over a lot of the questions anyway through the big segment that we've just done. But let's get started on this. So at PCellRatch 92.
Peter Steph.
Peter Steph. Yeah, Peter Steph. Okay, he's asking you this question. Who dared you to get that trim? I think he's talking about your lid. I quite like it, but yeah, there was a few about your hair.
A shaved head.
I don't know. It's
that's weird. It was what I used to have or what I have now? Or...
Well, let's have a look. Just move your headphones a little bit. Let's have a look.
Don't expose me, bro. I'm not going down right there where you get this.
Are you okay? Yeah.
I don't really have a haircut at the moment. I was going to get one today, but check the profile picture on that one. Is it a baldy? Check the profile, because usually that's where the haircut jokes come from.
Yeah, maybe it is Peter Steph. It's not like him to be talking about the hair. So I think the trim's all right. Anyway, at Phil Head, how do the Six Nations rivalry compare to the Bledisloe games? I think you've kind of said that, but Bledisloe are still massive, aren't they? But where are they in comparison?
still massive. And I never played in a Bledisloe, so I wouldn't know. It's different when you got the jersey on and you're coming out. And obviously, when I was younger, they were massive, But since I've moved over here, I tell everyone from back home, it's very hard to describe the feeling of playing at Murrayfield or Twickenham to people back home because we just don't have big stadium games like that anymore. And I hope, I really hope that the Lions can bring that hype back to Australian rugby.
Another ex-player, Sean Maitland, and this is more of an inside joke with me and mates.
Is this the real? Is this the real account?
This is the real account, I think. See how I said I think? No, it's definitely mates. He's messaged it. I proofread it. He's been verified. But he said, ask him if he's an MC Docs or an MC Uso. Because when I'm with Sean, God. I was with the Vunipolas or I was with like Manu or the Tuolangis. Like I'd be speaking in like this. I don't even know. It's like Tongan Samoan. Like, all right, Uso me, old Toko.
It's all mixed, isn't it?
Yeah. So what does the MC bit mean?
I actually don't know what he's talking about in terms of MC, but obviously Docs and Uso is Samoan and Tongan,
Yeah.
But it's just so funny because when the Scottish boys, when I first came in, they were all hitting me with the Uso, and like a little bit of that's taboo, you wanted to let them know, like, oh, no, I'm Tongan, bro. Like I'm not, I'm not Samoan, but like I had like Finn and that would come up to me and be like, "Supples." You know what I mean? And I'd be like, all right, bro.
So what is that? So you've got Uso Samoan.
Yeah, and that's brother in Samoan, and Doko is, which is shortened to Docs, is brother in Tongan.
And what about, is there a Fijian one?
Mana.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. And we'll just say mate. That's what we say over here. Here's a good one, actually. Jean is South African because it's spelled Jean, or it could be a woman, but I think it's South African. Jean Stibo. Is Duan van der Merwe good enough to play for the Springboks?
No way.
Nah.
No way.
Does that? He must think about that sometime. I mean, because he's South African. I know he's Scottish, but fuck, he's like proper Afrikaans.
Mate. He I'm assuming. To be honest, I actually don't think he thinks about it. I actually think he's real happy in his pocket now of being the freak. You know what I mean? Like the outlier. You know what I mean? Like you go watch our training sessions, like what the hell is that dude? You know what I mean? Like he looks like a robot out there. I felt like if he played for the Springboks, there's other big robots like him. He wouldn't be that guy. You know what I mean? So I think he likes. I think he likes being the outlier at Scotland.
Yeah, the South African lads get stuck into South Africans that are playing other teams, though, aren't they? I've always kind of felt that they take it like as in quite personally, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. They're obviously some of the most passionate fans in the world, but they've got a lot of time on the internet as well.
They have
get into the lads and stuff like that, but it's part of the game.
Right, a couple of quick ones. Gonk 723, deep fried pizza or deep fried Mars bar?
Deep fried pizza.
Yeah, I mean, this is like street food of Scotland. Like in different countries, you get like street food tacos. Just came back from Austin. There was like a Spanish tapasy feel. In Scotland, you get a deep fried Mars bar, which ain't great. UK Master Kush. Rumour has it, he spelt it like as in like a room, has it that your nan is replacing you for the Six Nations matches. They want a Tuipulotu, your brother or your nan. How cool was that actually? I know it's a little bit old news because there was so much publicity made about that, but there was a real human element to seeing your nan come over, which was cool.
Oh, it was unreal, mate. Like you say, there was a lot of media stuff around it, but just even after, I think the most special part of it was after the autumn finished, was she stayed for a couple more weeks and I got to spend a little bit more quality time with her. And she's so funny. Like she tells you straight, what needs to be done. So it was so nice having her over here, bro.
Yeah, big shout out to Frame Agency actually and Skyscanner who made that happen. I was chatting to my mate Stephen there who said that they were a part of that. A lovely human touch in what is a gladiatorial sport. So yeah, really cool to see. And you might have answered this one already, but Ali 466, just one name. Who was your idol growing up?
Rugby idol. Obviously, I've already answered that with Martin Onu.
Yeah, and best player, he said. So who's the best player you've played with? That's Rodders 889, actually.
Okay, best player that I've played with. If I had to narrow them all down, where does the heart say? Yeah. The heart says, it is Muscles. It is Mr. Russell, but I don't want to say it because
Why?
I don't want him to. I don't want him to know that I think he's, think he's good and stuff. but genuinely, I always make the joke to Finn about it is that like you have, like, I feel like Islanders are very naturally gifted athletes. They're built, you know what I mean? Like, obviously Finn has a horrendous body, but I always say to him, I've never come across anyone in my life that has natural hand-eye. Like, he has the weird. Have you seen him juggle and stuff like that? And then he like hits a golf ball. He hasn't hit a golf ball in the last 8 months and just does his thing. And then it's all these weird things that I've picked up and like I've observed over the last couple of years that I've never met anyone like that. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's very strange to me. His hand-eye. It's very weird.
Gifted. Weird, gifted.
Yeah, but
Same thing.
Like,
it's the same thing.
Do you know anyone that's naturally hand-eyed?
He's a freak. Genuinely.
It's weird, bro.
He really is, because you look at the rig on him, like you're right, and he ain't bothered, is he? He's there, his thick arms hanging out, he's got a pot belly. And I always say about Finn, it'd be interesting to get your perspective on Finn.
Yeah.
Unbelievable tackler. For a guy that is quite slight, he's a wicked tackler, right?
Yeah. He's always, because then he puts it on the boys as well. I'm a better tackler than you. Why don't I play that position? Like he's always, but when he plays for Scotland specifically as well, he gets in front of anyone. And I think that's the part that's probably most overlooked about his game, because all the other stuff is obvious, but he'll get in front of everyone, especially when he's playing for Scotland.
Yeah. Steve-O 6969, I'm sure that is his handle. Of course it is. You could only pick one team to beat in the Six Nations. Who would it be?
Oh, England and Twickenham. So
it's still a thing then? England's still a thing now? Because we've beaten them, but is it the last 4 times on the spin? But is it still a thing? You feel that?
England and Twickenham, bro.
That's the one. Simple. Sione, mate, it's been awesome to have you, mate. Really, really cool. I'm so sorry that you're injured and that you're going to miss the Six Nations. I hope you've felt the love, and to have you on the show has been brilliant, mate. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Yeah, cool. I'm just going to do a big shout out to the audience and the fans. So a big thank you to Sione, I just mentioned there, but a big thank you to all the listeners. Big thank you to Spotify as well, Sione. I'm in the studio here. They're giving me the platform and supporting the show. We'll be back next Friday, so make sure you subscribed on all the podcast channels, YouTube, so you don't miss a show. Be cool.